Stephen Abiodun. And yes, I'm excited, to have all of you join us here today. Um, the topic today, of course, we have our speakers, and the topic for consideration today is teachers' engagement and strategy for hybrid schooling. Um, Education in the 21st century, has taken a a new step or a new direction, and there are so many things to consider in this light. So we have our speakers, Lies Olivares, and yes, I can see your smile, and Sally Kimangu, and they would, of course, be doing justice to the topic. And I look forward, yes, I look forward to, you know, learning a lot. I look forward to, the questions, the insightful questions. It's going to be fun, trust me. So we are ready. I believe we are ready. If you're ready, type ready in the chat box. So get your pen, get your biros. We're going to be learning a lot. Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much. We're going to learn a lot. Let me read out a little about um, our speakers. I'll be reading a little about our speakers, and we'll kick off from there. So starting off, Lies will be starting with us. Did I get your name correctly?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. See me, I'm clapping for myself in my mind. So Lies Leite is a Brazilian education psychologist. She's been studying and working in Finland since 2016, where she's worked in international research collaborations and education development projects with Latin America, African, and Asian countries. And currently, she's undertaking a PhD study at the University of Eastern Finland and working as an education consultant and business developer for the Finnish edtech company Eduix Limited. So, Lies will be taking us on the flipped classroom methodology, a strategy for hybrid schooling. Thank you, Lies. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your introduction. And for my presentation, which I plan to be about 10 to 15 minutes, I will be sharing my slides so you can follow with also with some visualizations. Let me share my slides here. Can you see it?
Yes, please.
Great. So the topic of this conversation, at least from my side, is flipped classroom and teacher engagement. And let me just put in presenting mode. Yes, you can see it, right?
Yes, please.
Okay. So let's start with what is flipped classroom and why is it important to understand the principles of the flipped classroom methodology. So first, instead of going directly to the flipped classroom pedagogy, let's try to understand how it differs first from the traditional method and traditional classroom. Normally, when we go to a K-12 classroom, we see that the teachers are giving direct instruction to the student, meaning that the teachers are the gatekeepers of the knowledge and they aim to transfer knowledge in that group space when the teachers and students are together. And students are responsible to passively listen and learn this basic knowledge that the teachers are informing and transmitting in the group space. After the class lecture finish, the teachers assume that the students will do a homework at home, what we call individual space, when the students will be focused on like doing hands-on learning activities such as filling out exercises, um, trying to do more higher order thinking, more difficult activities, but by themselves at home without an expert or a mentor support. Sometimes they can um, get the help from the parents or an older sibling, but that's not always the case. And most of the time, the students are doing the hard work alone in their individual space by themselves. The flipped classroom differs from this traditional model exactly by trying to flip this idea of what to do in the individual and in the group space. In the flipped classroom, the students will first deal with the homework. So they will first try to get a basic learning in their individual space. And here I really want to stress the word basic, because the students are not supposed to go through complex materials by themselves. It should be some sort of basic knowledge that they can watch in a YouTube video or from a video that the teachers recorded, or by reading a book chapter, a paper, or by doing basic exercises. And after they go through this basic learning, then they go to the group space, do the hard work, the hands-on learning with higher order thinking, together with their peers and with the direct support of their teachers. In the flipped classroom, teachers are not knowledge gatekeepers, but mentors, supporting the students who are then driving the learning process. To try to understand a little bit more what is going on behind this pedagogical approach, it is interesting to know about the Bloom's taxonomy. Bloom's was a education researcher who developed this kind of classification in levels of difficulties when we are trying to learn something new. And this taxonomy goes like that. First, when we are trying to learn something new, we first try to deal with basic learning through remembering facts or basic information. So we just try to recall this relevant information and to store it in our long-term memory. Then we move to a higher level, let's say a higher difficulty level of learning, which is the understanding level. Now, besides remembering a fact, the students need to try to make sense of the material. And by making sense, I mean maybe making some connections from what they're learning now to something that they knew before. Just a moment. Yes. After, in a higher order thinking level, the students need to apply this new knowledge that they are learning by using this in different types of situations that is needed. Next, they try to analyze, to break this new concept into parts and understand how each part is related to one another and how each part is different from one another as well. Finally, they will try to make evaluation judgments based on a set of guidelines using this knowledge and create something new, putting this information together in an innovative way. Using the Bloom's taxonomy from the levels of learning that students are going through in the classroom, in a traditional classroom setting, what we see is that when the teachers are occupying the role of knowledge gatekeepers and transmitting knowledge in the group space, they are limiting the class time only to the remembering and understanding difficulty levels of learning, which is the basic learning. And the teachers are asking the students to go through the hard work of learning, meaning doing their homework at home by themselves, when they will have to apply, to analyze, to evaluate and create something new, but totally by themselves. The flipped classroom methodology inverts this allocation of the different types of learning according to their difficulty level to maximize the academic performance and to support the students when they need the most. So now in the flipped classroom methodology, the students will first go through their homework only in the basic level of learning. So they will try to by themselves, in their own time, in their own space, to remember, recall relevant knowledge, and to understand this new knowledge by making sense with their own life experiences, with previous knowledge they have. And with this new basic learning, they will go to the classroom with better tools, better cognitive tools, to do the hard work together with their peers and the support of their teachers. So the flipped classroom tries to integrate pedagogical and cognitive science research to maximize the way that students can learn with the support of the teacher, but also by themselves, stimulating self-regulated learning. There is a plethora of literature describing what are the benefits that the students have after teachers implemented the flipped classroom methodology. And this goes among self-regulation and working skills, because now the students will develop to a certain degree an ability to teach themselves when they are doing their homework first, but to try to understand basic knowledge by themselves, and also to judge by themselves if they were able to do this learning or if they need more help. So this is all self-regulation. Flipped classroom is also student-centered, because during their homework time in the beginning, they have more control over their learning resources. When the students are going through the basic learning, they need more time. And if they are in a classroom and maybe they are shy or they are scared of making questions in front of their peers and their teachers, this prevents learning as well. But if the basic learning is done in a safe space at home, where students have more control over their learning resources, then they can learn better this basic knowledge. And by implementing this basic learning together with their peers and with the support of the mentors, research has really shown that the academic performance of the students has improved. And it also has improved the student motivation. From the point of view of the teacher's benefits, although implementing a flipped classroom has its challenges in the beginning, because there is a lot of changes that the teachers need to go through, especially in the beginning, after they went through these initial challenges, teachers have reported to increase the success rate of the students during the core subject and also enjoy more teaching. So to go finally to the main topic of my presentation here, and how flipped classroom helps teachers to engage more in their own teaching methodology, it helps and it improves the teacher's engagement. When teachers learn a new set of pedagogical methodology and pedagogical strategies, which are research and evidence-based. Because flipped classroom has been using evidence and lessons learned from the learning science. Flipped classroom does implement what we have learned so far about learning memory and attention, about how it's important to chunk new information and do this through the individual and group space, to schematize knowledge by creating effective activities for the students. And it also improves teachers' engagement when the teachers realize that their students are, in fact, learning more. Another aspect of the increase of teachers' engagement when they are using flipped classroom is that in this kind of methodology, teachers have more flexibility to be creative and to literally create new types of activities in the different settings in the individual group space and in the group space. And also there has been plenty of awards for teachers who have successfully implemented flipped classroom. According to the self-determination theory, teachers' motivation increased when they implemented flipped classroom because it boosted teacher professional development. And it's also aligned with the current trends of digital and hybrid learning. Finally, as I said, and I'm repeating myself, teachers do increase their engagement when they realize that their students are learning more. Um, Another factor is that when students come to the classroom, when they have learned a little bit about the content that they are supposed to learn more in the classroom, these kind of new interactions foster what we call collective knowledge building, in which the students are not what we call a blank page that the teachers will write on it because they're just transferring knowledge. Now the students have their own set of knowledge as well when they come to the classroom, and they can engage in deeper types of dialogues with the teachers. And finally, uh, teachers have a good opportunity to review their old and ineffective teaching practice and update themselves with a more student-centered and research-based pedagogical approach. I just would like to finish my presentation opening the possibility of resetting the education model through curriculum reform, in which this is done by implementing flipped classroom. And we are focused on less teaching and more learning through student-centered approach, new assessment processes, focus on developing teachers' professional competencies, and also using technology as a catalyst for education transformation. We at Eduix are very interested in developing new collaborations by implementing assessment, pilot training with the teachers, decide if we continue or not with a possible collaboration, finally implementing a customized teacher professional development towards a curriculum reform in which we are aiming to enhance school digital transformation with new pedagogical approaches. Thank you very much for your attention, and I will mute myself and we continue the discussion further. Thank you.
Wow, wow, that's awesome. That's awesome, and a whole lot, and a whole lot. Thank you so much for sharing, Lice. Um, Certainly we learned so much, particularly about. I mentioned something while introducing you and introducing the topic. I made mention of the fact that the 21st century, requires more attention, in the sense that the traditional approach and the lecture kind of um, arrangement where the teacher is like the sole source of knowledge, it's a lot is changing in that space, and it is very important that new methods are being implemented in the classroom to achieve desired results. From your presentation, I learned that the benefits of the flipped classroom is it promotes active listening. and it gives learners the chance to actually articulate um, and assess themselves um, on the aspect of learning, like what do I know, you know, and also share this knowledge with their peers and even their teachers, which is very, very beautiful. Um, Moving on, if we have questions, right? If you have questions, kindly use the chat box, or yes, kindly use the chat box, and maybe after the second session, we would go ahead to ask questions and engage participants. So um, type ready in the chat box if you're ready for the next speaker. Her name is Sally Kimangu. She's an edtech socialpreneur with over 2 decades experience, and she is also a lifelong learner who desires to see equality, diversity, inclusivity, and economic empowerment. She's a STEM educator, and she's the founder of Destination Imagination Africa and EduStore Africa and Discovery Club Africa. And her works are impacting hundreds of African children through coding and robotics. She was recognized among the top 50 global thought leaders on EdTech in September 2021 by Thinkers 360. She's an active member of various international organizations and highly sought after speaker and deliberator on various platforms on matters varying from education, tech revolution in Africa, women empowerment, and amongst other various issues. Put your hands together. We are so excited to have in our midst Sally Kimangu. Sally Kimangu, kindly unmute and take over.
Thank you very much. Very much honored. And looks like, where are we? Are we in Abuja or we in Lagos? Where are we?
We are in Lagos, we are in West Africa, we are in Africa, we are in the world. We're super excited to have you.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me, and it was pretty awesome listening to Lays. You raised quite a very engaging conversation whose time has come. And my presentation, I'd love to make it like a discussion, if that's allowed. I'll go easy because I can see a lot of thought leaders and experts in this space here. And I'd love, as we get so deep into trying to understand, where we know that a lot of us in Africa, the digital divide has been quite a challenge, and we know how we had to get into hybrid education. And we know the struggles that we had to get into until it got to a point where we went like, so we can do this. And now I'm sure we can all attest to it's becoming like our new way of life, with a lot of our kids not going to university abroad because they've realized they can study right from their little corners in their houses. So let's first look into the shift. So the shift to hybrid education is standing at the horizon in this fusion of physical and digital landscape, creating an entirely new realm of learning, which I think the only constant thing in life is change. So, and we have teachers at the center stage of all these. So, our educators, have we prepared them? And where is our learner? And how do we do the whole migration and the shift? So, I'll get deep onto getting us to discuss 5 critical points we could look into and see how can we make sure that learning continues and the learner, the teacher, they are coping with the changes as they are and looking at this change in a positive way. So let's start with embracing change. So hybrid education is a transformative journey that blends physical and digital landscapes. We know it as educators. it's essential to step into this journey in an open heart and mind and embrace the innovative tools and techniques that hybrid schooling brings. Now, one of the most critical concerns I see as we look into embracing that change is how well prepared are we emotionally? Are the kids prepared for this? Are the educators prepared for this? How much of training do we make sure that it's done? We know it. We don't look at educators as just getting into the classroom and impacting knowledge. They are mentors. There's a lot more they do. So, what resources do we have that when kids are learning, be it virtually or from wherever, that we're still able to support them? So we have educators who've come up with so many tools of making sure that within that engagement, you get to sort out in your own. We have so many unique ways that educators come up with of ensuring that socio-emotional learning, the well-being of a child is taken care of. Then I'll get to the second point, which is empowering digital literacy. As conduits of knowledge, educators must navigate the digital realm with confidence. Um, from so many different facets of life, we know the struggles we've had with our educators, encouraging them to embrace digital literacy. So it's critical that we make sure there's upskilling and ongoing professional development, which is key to equip educators with competencies required to effectively implement digital tools and platforms. This happened with, I'm sure most of you witnessed when we started with COVID-19, where we had to teach our educators what is Zoom, how do you use Zoom, what is Google Classroom, and how do you use it, how do you use Skype. And we saw, I think I would give a big up for Africa because a lot of educators rose up to the occasion. Some used their smartphones, and virtually, there were classrooms from every corner. Learning was going on. So let me go to number 3. I hope I'm not too fast.
No, no, no. It's fine. Thank you.
Okay. So cultivating connections in a hybrid setting, maintaining the human touch is vital. So this I could not emphasize anymore. Teachers need to foster a sense of community and belonging, ensuring that every student feels seen, heard, and valued, whether they're learning from a classroom or a computer screen. So I think our strong African slogan, we say, it takes the village to raise a child. And we can see a huge difference with the 21st century learner and what we call the millennials. Most of us, we were raised by the community. There was that grandma you'd get from school and get home, and the community was there. There was grandma, there was grandpa to sit and talk to. There were aunties. These were mentors, which maybe who have those who have gray hair like I do went through that. I think the generation after me, we went to the cities. Our parents were too busy working. And yes, we agree we live in a commercial world. So that touch, that nurturing of a child, we left it to the teacher. Now we are telling this child to learn virtually and the teacher to teach virtually. What do we expect? What is the outcome? So, how do we carry on and foster the sense of community and belonging? We know the four walls, what we call the classroom, it's not just the academics that we look after. That mentorship, that collaboration, the skills we get, the feel, the relationships we create, the friends we make, it's a very critical part of our growth. So if suddenly the child has to study virtually, be it a university student, how do we make sure that you are still nurtured, you're still you're still loved, you're still taken care of? So with that, again, so many tools ensure that still creating, we have so many little activities we've come up with within our organization where we ensure that even if it's one-on-one, the educator and the student, you still make it very experiential. You make sure that there'll be a moment that the student has to do something that's physical. And with a camera, you can see, you can talk to each other, you can look at each other in the eyes and feel their presence. It hasn't been very easy, but it can be done. So I'll go to my fourth point, promoting student autonomy. So hybrid schooling invites learners to become active participants in their education. By providing clear expectations, resources, and support, teachers can empower students to take charge of their learning. They foster independence and self-motivation. When you know this is your assignment, this is what you need to do. We need to be online at 2 p.m. to study with this teacher. Then you become education, you make you make it very much learner-centered, and then the entire education experience, you become the center of your education experience. So you own the journey. You take that responsibility as a student. And you also get that full attention, which sometimes it can get lost within a huge classroom. So, yes, we have its pros and cons, but it fosters that sense of responsibility in students. Let me go to number 5, nurturing well being. The hybrid model introduces new dynamics that can impact learners' mental and emotional well being. Teachers should prioritize creating safe, supportive learning environments, providing students with the resources they need to navigate the digital world safely and healthily. So, back again to still ensuring, most important and critical, our educators are trained and they're ready for that change. Then they can easily be the champions who help the student transition and even ensure that the students are very comfortable with that model. And as much as we have learned to embrace the changes, we still know we've had a lot of challenges, even with or without COVID, with the traditional classroom. Not every learner is able to cope in that. And we have seen the rise of homeschooling, and even homeschooling where the parent will insist on, I can only take my child to a class where they're at least not more than 10, because there's just a lot of sometimes mental issues that are happening within our kids. There's a lot of peer pressure. And we also getting to a point of understanding we all learn differently. So if we can all be taken and treated as this unique being that has their own journey to follow, I think we could have an easier way of looking at education. Now, on the hybrid learning, especially for university level students, I'm pursuing my MBA, and I've had my personal challenges. To a point, the first semester I wanted to defer because I'm a social being. And suddenly I need to speak to this teacher who is on a screen, who actually quite often just leaves an assignment for me. That was very, very difficult, especially when I started. So at my age, where I know why I've gone back to school, if I could still face those challenges, what do you expect of the younger generation? So we need to have ways that we can mitigate that. And I would get back to, I think, maybe what I'm very passionate about, emphasizing on soft skills. If we can ensure, even if it's hybrid learning you're doing, but you have your communication skills, you can collaborate, even if it's virtually, you can express yourself with communication skills, and you can apply your critical thinking, your problem solving skills. You are easily able to have a group of students that you meet. So as much as it was there in the system, there's a team that we meet. I, I being a social being and really struggling with that, I emphasized on, can we have more group meetings? Because I want to pick your brains. I want to discuss with you. I want to know if I'm the only one who is struggling with a particular module. So there's so many ways we can look into it and see that we are still able to successfully fulfill our education experience and our journey. Thank you very much. I am happy to listen to questions. And I think I'll close at that point. Thanks for your patience.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, Sally. I learned a lot, especially from the practical experience you shared. while studying in your MBA? Well, there's a lot of challenges, if I might say, especially in Africa, and we adjusting to virtual tools for teaching and learning. Um, some might say thank God for COVID, that if not for COVID, we wouldn't have um made that shift, that transition. Okay, good. Do we have questions before I start my questions here? Do we have questions? Kindly share in the chat box. All right, awesome. So in 1 minute, let the questions come in the chat box. In 1 minute, can we share let's put this into perspective of the African child. Now, um we have the challenge of many will describe Africa as a developing country, and not many children have access to computers, not many children have access to light, like power supply. Not many children have access to internet connection. How do you think we can a bit, not necessarily eradicate it, but how do you think we can go about these challenges? Lies, Sally, if you're interested, you can just unmute and speak. Thank you.
Sure. Maybe I can give some contribution from the point of view of flipped classroom. There is a huge stereotype that flipped classroom is all about teachers recording videos of themselves, making a lecture, and giving to the students watch at home first, so they do it before as a homework in the individual space, and after that they go to the classroom, meet their peers, and do the higher order thinking, hands-on learning. But this question comes exactly to the context of many children, not only in Africa, but around the world, like the camera to record the video of the teacher, the computer or the phone or smartphone for the students to watch it, the internet connectivity, the electricity to charge the phone. So all these stereotypes, let's say, or first impressions, uh, that's really not the point. That's how flipped classroom has been widely implemented. But I think what is important is to focus on the pedagogical principles behind it and the lessons learned from cognitive science and um, self-realization theory, which is, okay, we know that students need to feel more empowered and more in control of the learning process. And it is okay to do that with a book, with activity that the teachers can think for the students to do at home, with the resources, whatever resources they have at home, even with the help of their parents. So this could be simple activities that the teachers can plan for the students to do at home as the direct learning experience, the basic learning process, where students at home will feel safe to ask questions to their sisters, brothers, parents, to learn a book in their own time, repeating as many times as possible, and then coming to the classroom with a basic knowledge and feeling more confident because they know already something about the content that they will dive deeper. And in the classroom, without a computer, without a phone, the teachers can also plan activities that don't necessarily need technology or that are not technology based. Technology does enhance many types of learning experience. It expands the local environment to the global community. So it has its privileges and advantages. But the idea of the flipped classroom methodology is really to focus on the pedagogical principles of it and how to use in different settings with whatever resources you have at hand. What about you, Sally?
Thank you, Lays, and I love the points you're raising. And yes, it's absolutely true. Sometimes we attach so much into constantly looking at what we don't have rather than looking at what do we have. And if we look at what we have, there's always a solution. And especially speaking from an African standpoint, where I focus on marginalized communities. So you'll find us in the poor of the poorest communities. And the sort of innovation and the knowledge, the skills we find in those villages, it is mind blowing, which this has been my classroom of getting to understand education technology or hybrid learning. It's not about the tools you get. It is so much with what do you do with the tools that you can access. And yes, within COVID, we get into some situations where truly, as Lace says, we have to print books because that's what kids can access. But guess what? We also become so innovative and introduce the use of solar. We've actually, especially with COVID, and I'm sure most of you coming from West Africa would affirm or attest to this, where we will ensure, and I mean, we know it, we still don't have electricity in every part of our African villages. But the smartphone penetration is, I think, at 90 something plus percent. That is literally every household has a smartphone. Whether the smartphone is for mom or dad, but somebody has a smartphone, or auntie or uncle. So how do we ensure that we train and we put our courses or any lesson that the child needs to access within that, in that smartphone? And when mom comes home in the evening, can you give the child for 2 hours your phone to study with? A smartphone is one of the greatest resources we have in Africa that we don't take advantage of. Then we also have the use of, we've done a lot of using, obviously, generators first so that you get electricity. Then we use, I don't want to say smart board. What do you call the other projector screens? Projectors. So, and as in Africa, we don't need a projector screen. We just use the wall. So you just need a projector. And well, you need electricity, but with a projector, you can teach an entire class. So we've had situations where you'll get to the chief's camp, because sometimes that's the only place all the kids can come to, and you put them like the traditional movies, how they were done. So there's one teacher somewhere 100 or 1,000 kilometers away, but training 100 kids somewhere. And that's learning, and learning still continues. So there's so many ways we are resourceful, we are resilient, and we know we don't have it can't be done attitude. I focus on STEAM education, which has so much to do with technology and sciences. And I keep on emphasizing the use of recycled materials and not looking at EdTech like the shiny iPad, that you have to get these sophisticated tools for you to implement it. No, it can be done. We have done sharing of tablets where school A uses these tablets on a Monday and gives it to school B. Same thing in our households. There will be one smartphone, but every child is rotating it to an extent of sharing with the neighbor. And maybe that's where we embrace the spirit of Africans of Ubuntu, Harambe, sharing. I don't know what we call it in Nigeria. Stephen, you help me there. I hope that makes sense to you.
Yes, wonderful, wonderful. Well, it's still known as Ubuntu, the
Awesome.
spirit of brotherhood. And yes, as Africans, we should support Africans. Wonderful, wonderful insights, lies. Um, Truthfully, it is more of a pedagogical, lesson. And as Sally mentioned, it is worthy to note that there are other ways. Africans are quite resilient, and we make a way where there seems to be where there seems to be no way. We've made a lot of we've proven this time over time, and I believe there is much and much we can do when we actually reflect and look at our environment um, from another angle or from another perspective. Thank you so much for sharing. Let me check the chat box to see if we have questions. Okay, no questions yet. I wish people were here because Learner's Corner, a lot is happening in the education space, really, especially in Africa. And Learner's Corner as a learning technology hub in West Africa, we they have done so much in connecting stakeholders in education with researchers and technology developers to foster young leaders who are looking for training opportunities. One of it is an event like this. It is a monthly it's a monthly event, more like a platform to discuss the current trend. A lot has changed, but it is yet to reflect in pedagogy, if I can say so. Yeah. So yes, Learner Corners is actually doing a lot in this space, and we hope to further our work to the deepest parts of Africa and make sure that Africa is shining bright, not just Africa, of course, the world at large. So thank you so much, Lice, and thank you so much, Sally. But before we draw the curtains on this event, is there something you'd like to add? Is there something you'd like to add, Lice, speaking from the psychological, the educational psychological aspects?
Yes, thank you, Stefan. I think there is a need for those who are willing to go through and dive deeper in the flipped classroom. There is a need for a mindset change in terms of being open to learn something new, to question old teaching practices, to question routines, to question an habit that most part of the time it might seem effective, but at least put it out there for questioning, for inquiry, especially having your students as the main goal of your work, which is fulfilling and reaching their human potential, not only in terms of cognitive learning, but in terms of self-regulation skills, or how Sally put it, emotional development skills, and searching for human connection. So, in terms of this change or shift in mindset, I would call the teachers and educators to really take a deeper look at their students and try to understand what is working for them, what is not working for them, and use the lessons from cognitive learning sciences to improve their own teaching methodologies. That's my final work. Thank you.
Also, that there is a need for mindset change and for educators, especially teachers, to evaluate and question their old teaching practices. I think that's actually very, very powerful. That's profound, if I might say. I'm clapping for you in my mind now. All right. So Sally, from the aspect of STEM education and social impact programs around education, yeah. Uh, what's your projection for Africa in the area of hybrid learning? And of course, your final words. or yeah, your closing remarks, if I may say.
Thank you. Thank you. And you actually asked something that is very, very close to my heart because I think I'm
Thank you.
becoming sort of an activist in that space of where you constantly look at, can we just, we know our problems, can we get done with complaining and get done into doing and get going? And we know it. We don't want to say so much when Liza is in the room because we know we still protect our Africa.
Of course, of course.
But we know we have a host of challenges. Currently, we're looking at so many countries, they have introduced or transitioning to a different curriculum, but there's no preparation. The teachers were not trained, nothing much has happened. Our youth are jobless, our teachers or educators are confused. They're just wondering, what am I supposed to do? And their kids in class. But we know we constantly like saying our scars are our trophies. And these challenges make us grow and make us build our resilience every day. So I have faith that we're still going to place Africa family on 21st century as we should transition now. I don't even know we're on what industrial revolution, because with all this AI disruption, we could be shooting onto six. Some countries, some continents are way on six. I think we're still on four. We won't say it loudly. There's still a lot of issues that we're dealing with. If we're still talking about when Lays and them, they're talking about, should we introduce ChatGPT in the classroom? In Africa, we're asking, and what is that? And how do we get electricity? And how do we get enough tablets? And how do we get teachers? How do we get books? How do we make sure that kids have food? But there's still a lot of work that's going on. And it's very impressive to see that we've all taken this responsibility, most Africans, most educators on, still got to be done. We still have to make sure that our children are not left behind. And maybe looking at how innovative Africans can be, it is something to admire. So, what I encourage educators so much to do is embrace resourcefulness. Just hit back on your creativity. Try to work within those limitations. We know there are no budgets, you don't have resources. Try to use recycled materials. Then try as well to prioritize access. It's crucial to ensure that students constantly, besides their circumstances, the digital divide, we try constantly and reduce it. Then seek partnerships. Well, at least we are here struggling with what to do with our children. We have so many organizations that are looking for someone to assist. So collaborate with NGOs, government bodies, private enterprise, and even international donors. Try and secure the resources that are available. Constantly we get to an extent of, I'll speak to someone like Liz and I go like, within your university, don't you have some old laptops that you can donate to us in Africa? Currently, we have a donor who has given us so many books. We have more than 400 ebooks at our disposal. So all we need to do is get some little funding, print them for those kids who can't access them online. But for those who can access them online, we're very happy to share. And these are books that are coming with videos. So just don't be scared of asking and seeking those partnerships. Then obviously, we can't get done with this conversation without talking about training and supporting our teachers. They're on the forefront of this transition. We need to provide them and equip them with skills and strategies so that they can carry on doing the jobs and much more, being very effective within the hybrid model with limited resources and STEM education. Then foster community engagement. That's critical. Whether we're getting very little support or any, that engagement with parents, they are your biggest stakeholders. Let them get to know what's happening in the classroom. The caregivers, the broader community, in our journey towards all these, they have to be there. It's critical that they get to understand. That's the only way we can be able to navigate the challenges. They have a voice. They are resourceful. We've gone to an extent when we're training on STEM education and we have a shortage of trainers. We ask parents who can volunteer. who is an engineer within the community, who is trained in video shooting, who is a videographer, who can come and give the kids, and they're more than willing to help. Who has a carpentry shop, we can come and get the kids to learn some skills. Then patience. Transitioning into all this, it will take a lot of patience. So as you know it, Rome was not built in a day. It will take time. Obey the process and remind yourself the significant potential that this model will bring. It's going to transform our lives. So it won't happen overnight. Then obviously, don't lose sight of the goal. Always remember where you embarked on this journey of education, why we here, how can we keep on empowering our children and open up to opportunities that can change lives for us as educators and children. So let's write, let's persevere, and let's transform education one hybrid classroom at a time. And obviously, making sure we get maker spaces. Every classroom should have, every school should have a maker space. That's the only way we can still carry on and emphasize on the need for us to introduce STEAM education within our schools. Thank you very much.
That's profound. That's profound. Thank you so much for sharing. It's been an insightful discussion so far. And I believe yes, it's not the 21st century is not entertaining excuses, and on the part of Learner's Corner, I can testify, if I must say, I can testify that a lot is going on, and Learner's Corner is trying so much to carry and upskill many educators, especially in Africa, to upskill them and spread the word. Um, so far, they've Learner's Corner has done this through many partnerships, and by God's grace, we are looking forward to more. And yes, there is no stopping. There is no stopping. So international communities, um, international communities, and you mentioned something about fostering community engagement. I dropped in the chat box some minutes ago our social networks. So feel free to connect with us. Everyone listening, feel free to connect with us on Instagram, the LCT Hub, and on LinkedIn, Learner's Corner Education Tech Hub. There's so much. We have to stay connected. We have to stay connected. And obviously, you said something profound, and it's something that is, on my mind lately. You said about partnership and not being scared to ask. you know, I know so many innovators, especially around the education, um, sector. But yes, there's, you know, not asking is actually, I would say it is a limitation. I would say it is an excuse. I would say it is an excuse. So thank you so much for sharing, Sally. Your experience is a whole lot. Sally, if I may ask, if people, oh, beautiful, beautiful. I was about asking if they want to connect with you, how can they do that? Lice, can we have your, oh, beautiful, beautiful. For sure we will. We will. I'm sure we're taking notes. Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Um, it's beautiful that we connect. So maybe after the event, the room will still be open for about 5 minutes so that we can network and connect with other innovators and industry experts. Thank you so much, Lice. And thank you, Sally. Your contribution so far has been so wonderful, so wonderful. And I'm expecting that, yes, maybe people are shy, but it shouldn't be, you know. So yes, thank you so much. I'm saying a big thank you to Learner's Corner for this innovation. And the next month we'll be having our our edition of the our monthly webinar, and it's going to be powerful by God's grace. But it's going to be powerful. It's going to be, insightful, just like today, and so much. Thank you so much. So thank you, and we'll call it a day now. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So we'll call it a day now, and let's keep in touch. So the chat room will be open for the next 5 minutes, and yes, we'll draw the curtain for today's event by 8:10 Nigerian time. Thank you so much.